On a chilly morning, the city was bustling with people trying to get to work, each lost in their own worries. Among them was a poor young girl, dressed modestly in worn-out clothes but with a quiet grace that drew attention without effort. She was standing at the crowded bus stop, clutching her small purse, barely enough to cover her day's expenses. Despite her own struggles, her eyes reflected warmth and empathy. As the bus arrived, people rushed forward, eager to find a seat. The girl stepped in last, waiting patiently in the line. Once inside, she noticed a man fumbling through his pockets, looking for spare change to pay the fare. His clothes were simple, and his face carried a calm, unassuming expression. He apologized softly to the driver, explaining that he must have left his wallet somewhere. The passengers behind him began to murmur impatiently, a few even rolled their eyes. Without hesitation, the girl took out her last few coins, the very ones she had saved to buy herself breakfast, and handed them to the driver. "It's okay, sir. I'll pay for him," she said gently. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough sincerity to quiet the murmurs. The man turned toward her in surprise, his eyes widening slightly. "You didn't have to do that," he said, his tone filled with gratitude. But she simply smiled and replied, "It's nothing. Maybe someday someone will do the same for me." That simple sentence lingered in the air. The driver nodded approvingly and gave her a kind look. The man took a seat nearby, still looking at her with silent admiration. He could see that she wasn't wealthy, her shoes were old, her hands bore the marks of hard work, but her heart was pure and generous. For her, it wasn't about receiving something in return. She believed in helping when she could, no matter how small the gesture. She knew what it felt like to struggle, to be overlooked, to feel helpless. And that empathy guided her every action. Little did she know that her tiny act of kindness was about to change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The man she helped was no ordinary commuter, he was a millionaire in disguise, observing the world beyond his wealth. Her selfless act touched something deep within him, setting the stage for a heartfelt story of gratitude, destiny, and transformation. As the bus rumbled forward through the city streets, the young girl sat quietly by the window, unaware that her simple act of kindness had already made a deep impression on the stranger she had helped. The man sat a few seats away, his gaze soft but thoughtful, silently observing her. He wasn't dressed like someone of great wealth, his shirt was plain, his shoes slightly dusty, and his demeanor calm. No one could have guessed that he was, in fact, a millionaire, quietly studying the world beyond his luxurious lifestyle. For years, this man had grown distant from ordinary life. Surrounded by money, assistants, and polished boardrooms, he had almost forgotten what genuine humanity looked like. On this particular morning, he decided to travel incognito, taking the bus instead of his usual private car. He wanted to feel what life was like for everyday people, to see if kindness still existed in a world that seemed increasingly driven by self-interest. And there she was, the poor girl who had paid his fare without hesitation. Her generosity had stirred something in him. He noticed how she carried herself with quiet dignity, despite the modest clothes and tired expression. Every gesture spoke of humility, compassion, and strength. He saw how she smiled at the elderly lady beside her, how she shifted her seat to make space for others, and how she looked out the window with a peaceful expression, as if dreaming of a better tomorrow. The man didn't say much. He remained silent, letting the bus ride continue while his mind was filled with curiosity and admiration. Who was this girl? What kind of heart chooses kindness when life has given so little in return? At one point, their eyes met. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that expects nothing but gives warmth nonetheless. He nodded politely, unsure how to express the gratitude that words couldn't capture. Deep down, he felt something powerful, a sense of hope. Hope that not everyone had forgotten the value of helping others, that even in hardship, compassion could still shine brightly. By the time the bus reached her stop, she stood up, thanked the driver, and stepped off into the busy street, vanishing into the crowd. But for the man, that moment lingered long after she was gone. He knew this encounter wasn't just coincidence, it was fate. And from that silent gratitude, a plan began forming in his mind, to find her again and return her kindness in a way she could never imagine. As the bus continued its journey through the noisy streets, the young girl remained seated quietly, her gaze lost outside the fogged window. The man she had helped sat nearby, still reflecting on her small but powerful act of kindness. He couldn't help but listen as two women sitting behind her began chatting with her. Their conversation slowly revealed more about the girl's life, a life defined by struggle, sacrifice, and silent strength. She spoke softly, not with complaint but with acceptance. "Work's been tough lately," she admitted with a weary smile. "I've been doing double shifts at the cafe, and sometimes I help clean offices after hours. My mother's not been well, and my younger brother's school fees are due soon, but I'll manage somehow." Her tone carried no bitterness, only quiet determination. The millionaire, still pretending to be an ordinary man, listened carefully. Each word she spoke pulled him deeper into admiration. She wasn't just kind, she was resilient, a fighter who faced life's storms without losing her compassion. Despite her circumstances, she never let hardship harden her heart. Her eyes still carried hope, her smile still had warmth, and her spirit radiated strength. The woman beside her asked, "Don't you ever get tired of helping others when you have so much on your plate?" The girl chuckled softly. "Sometimes, yes. But I believe what goes around comes around. If I can make someone's day a little easier, maybe someday life will be kind to me too." Those simple words struck the man deeply. He realized that true richness had nothing to do with money or possessions, it was the wealth of the heart that mattered. Here was someone who owned so little, yet gave so much. Someone who fought daily battles but never stopped believing in goodness. As the bus hit a sudden bump and raindrops began tapping against the window, the girl closed her eyes briefly, perhaps whispering a silent prayer for strength. The man noticed her shivering slightly, her thin jacket no match for the cold. He wanted to offer help, to tell her who he truly was, but something stopped him. He decided to remain silent, wanting to see her genuine self, untainted by the knowledge of his status. By the time she got off the bus, he felt a deep sense of respect and connection. He knew one thing for certain, this girl's kindness and courage deserved recognition. And soon, fate would give him the perfect chance to return what she had unknowingly given him, a renewed belief in humanity. The next morning dawned like any other for the young girl. She woke up early, prepared breakfast for her sick mother, and hurried off to another long day of work. Life had always been a series of struggles, unpaid bills, endless shifts, and dreams that seemed just out of reach. Still, she faced each day with quiet courage and a belief that someday, her efforts would pay off. That afternoon, while wiping tables at the small cafe where she worked, her manager approached her with a surprised smile. "There's someone here asking for you," he said. Confused, she turned toward the entrance. Standing there was a well-dressed man in an elegant suit, exuding calm confidence. She blinked, unable to recognize him at first, until their eyes met. It was the same man from the bus, but he looked completely different now. Gone was the humble appearance, instead, he carried the quiet authority of someone important. He smiled gently. "I hope you remember me," he said. "You paid my bus fare yesterday." Her mouth fell open slightly as she nodded. "Oh, yes, I remember. I'm glad you found your wallet." She laughed nervously, not sure why he was there. The man motioned for her to sit. "I didn't lose my wallet," he confessed. "I was observing how people treat one another when they believe no one is watching. You were the only one who showed kindness without hesitation. That moment told me more about your character than any interview ever could." She stared at him, puzzled. "Interview?" she repeated. He handed her an envelope with his company's logo on it, a prestigious business she had seen advertised on billboards. "I'm the CEO of this company," he said softly. "And I'd like to offer you a position. We need people like you, honest, compassionate, and hardworking. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked down at the offer letter, barely believing what she saw. "Sir, I don't know what to say. I never expected." He interrupted kindly, "You don't need to say anything. You've already proven what kind of person you are. Consider this a small way of returning the kindness you showed me." In that moment, everything around her seemed to fade, the clinking of coffee cups, the hum of chatter, until only gratitude filled the air. She had given away a few coins without a second thought, and now, life had given her something far greater in return. It was a full-circle moment of destiny, showing that sometimes, the smallest good deed can open the door to a future beyond imagination. The moment the young girl realized who the man truly was, her heart raced with disbelief. The stranger she had helped on the bus, someone she had assumed was just another passerby struggling through the day, was in fact a wealthy millionaire and the CEO of a major company. The revelation was overwhelming, yet it carried with it a profound message: kindness, even when unnoticed, has a way of returning in ways one could never imagine. The man, noticing her astonishment, smiled warmly. "You didn't know who I was, and yet you helped me without hesitation. That shows courage, integrity, and generosity, all qualities that are rare in this world." He extended a hand, not just in greeting, but as an invitation to a future she could never have foreseen. He offered her a stable job in his company, one that promised security, growth, and opportunities far beyond the small cafe she had worked at. As she processed the offer, he continued, "I want to ensure that your hard work and good heart are rewarded. You've faced so much in life and yet never let hardship change who you are. That is something truly remarkable." Her eyes filled with tears, not just from the promise of financial security, but from the recognition that her small act of kindness had meaning, that it had been noticed and valued by someone who could truly make a difference. The reward wasn't only material. Beyond the job, the millionaire became a mentor, guiding her through opportunities she had never dared to dream of. He provided encouragement, advice, and support, helping her build confidence and envision a life that once seemed impossible. She realized that one selfless gesture, simply paying someone's bus fare, had sparked a chain reaction, transforming her entire trajectory. Word of the story spread, inspiring others in the community. People marveled at how a small act of empathy could lead to life-changing consequences. The girl, now secure and thriving, continued to live by the same principles that had guided her from the beginning: kindness, humility, and generosity. She never forgot the bus ride that changed her life, nor did she lose sight of helping others in need. Ultimately, this story highlights a timeless truth: true wealth lies not in money, but in character. The millionaire recognized the priceless value of a good heart, and the girl learned that even the smallest gestures can have enormous, far-reaching impacts. Her life, once constrained by hardship, now blossomed because she chose compassion over indifference. In the end, it was a story not just about fortune, but about humanity, hope, and the transformative power of kindness.